Picture this, the heartbeat of Africa, a place where the sun doesn't just rise, it explodes across horizons painted in gold and crimson, the Masai Mara, where every dawn brings a fresh war, where every breath you take might be your final one, and where survival isn't guaranteed, it's earned through blood, claws, and unbreakable will. This is not a sanctuary, this is the arena. And in 2011, 4 nameless wanderers stepped into this battlefield. They had no kingdom, no legacy, no reputation, but they had each other. And within a decade, these 4 brothers would rewrite the laws of the wild, carve their names into the soil with their claws, and create a dynasty that wildlife historians still study today. Among these 4 warriors stood one whose destiny would eclipse them all, a lion whose right eye would become frozen in time, half open, scarred, staring into your soul with the weight of 1,000 battles. His name would echo through every corner of the Mara. Rangers would whisper it. Tourists would search for him for days. Hyenas would flee at his roar, and other male lions, they would challenge him at their own peril. This is the story of Scarface, the King of Masai Mara. But before we dive into his legendary reign, before we uncover how 4 brothers conquered over 400 square kilometers and ruled multiple prides simultaneously, something almost unheard of in lion history, I need you to do something. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, hit that subscribe button right now, because today we're not just telling a story, we're solving mysteries. Did Scarface really kill 400 hyenas and 130 lions like the internet claims? Or is this just another viral myth that's been repeated so many times it became fact? We're going to dig into actual field reports, conservation data, and eyewitness accounts to separate the legend from the truth. And trust me, the real story is far more incredible than any exaggeration. So make sure you're subscribed and that notification bell is on, because this is going to be one wild ride. Now let's rewind to 2011, the Masai Mara Reserve, Kenya. A landscape so vast it swallows you whole, endless savannas stretching toward Tanzania's Serengeti, where millions of wildebeest thunder across ancient migration routes. But we're focusing on a specific region, the Marsh Pride territory. And right on its borders, at a place called Rhino Ridge, 4 young male lions appeared seemingly out of nowhere. Nobody knew where they came from. No records of their birth, no documentation of their parents. They simply materialized like ghosts, their manes still developing, their eyes burning with hunger and ambition. Rhino Ridge wasn't chosen by accident. It's a strategic location, a buffer zone between the Marsh Pride and the Ridge Pride territories. For young nomadic males, it's relatively safe ground. The established pride males rarely patrol that far, and prey is abundant enough to survive while planning your next move. Rangers estimated these 4 brothers were between 3 and 3.5 years old. Old enough to be independent, young enough to still be reckless, despite the devastating wound to his face, despite the blood dripping into his remaining good eye. The injured brother didn't retreat. Instead, something primal took over. Pain transformed into rage. 3 against 2 became 4 against 2 again as he rejoined the fight. Romeo and Cloud, already exhausted from battling 3 young males, now faced the full force of 4. The mathematics of survival shifted. No matter how experienced you are, no matter how many battles you've won, when you're outnumbered 2 to 1 by males in their physical prime, the outcome is inevitable. Within minutes, Romeo and Cloud made the hardest decision a king can make. They ran. In the days following the takeover, Rangers returned to the Marsh Pride territory to document the change in power. What they found was extraordinary. 4 new males, all showing signs of combat, scratches, bite marks, exhaustion. But one stood apart from his brothers. The brother who had taken Cloud's claws to the face. His wound had begun to heal, but the damage was permanent. The upper eyelid on his right eye was torn beyond repair, meaning that eye would remain partially open for the rest of his life. It gave him an unsettling appearance, as if he was always watching, always alert. never fully resting. The Rangers looked at this distinctive injury and gave him a name that would become legendary: Scarface. Now, before we go further, let's talk about what happened to Romeo and Cloud, because their story is part of understanding why Scarface's coalition would become so dominant. Cloud was severely injured in the battle, deep wounds to his back and neck. A few days after the fight, he was spotted alone near Rhino Ridge, limping, unable to hunt effectively. Within weeks, he vanished completely. Field guides believe he either starved to death or was killed by hyenas in his weakened state. Romeo lasted slightly longer. He retreated toward the Masai and Mara Triangle regions, spending several months as a nomad before dying of natural causes in early 2013. Both were roughly 11 to 12 years old, ancient by male lion standards. Their time had simply run out. But Scarface and his three brothers, their time was just beginning. The Marsh Pride takeover wasn't just a victory, it was a statement. Word spread through the Ranger network, tour operators, and wildlife photographers. 4 young males had dethroned established kings, and they'd done it with military precision. Within days of taking power, they began the crucial process of integrating with the Pride's females. The Marsh Pride at that time consisted of 6 to 7 lionesses: Joy, White Eye, Sienna, Bibi, and several younger females. Normally, when new males take over, there's a tense adjustment period. Females resist, conflict erupts, but something unusual happened here. The lioness, and then there was Scarface. By 2013, his facial wound had fully healed, or rather had scarred over permanently. That distinctive half-open right eye became his signature. Photographers traveled from around the world hoping to capture his image. There was something haunting about him. When he rested with cubs playing around him, the contrast was striking. Innocence and violence in one frame. But don't mistake his quieter demeanor for weakness. Scarface wasn't just a member of this coalition. He was increasingly becoming its symbolic leader. Not necessarily the strongest fighter or the best hunter, but the one whose presence commanded respect. The one whose damaged eye seemed to see more than others. The one who embodied survival. By late 2013, the 4 brothers had firmly established themselves in Marsh Pride territory. Their cubs were growing. The lionesses were healthy. Prey was abundant. But here's the thing about successful male coalitions. They're never satisfied with what they have. Territory in the Mara isn't static. It's fluid, contested, always under pressure. If you're not expanding, you're vulnerable. The brothers began to look beyond their borders, specifically southwest toward an area called Paradise Plains. This region, on the far side of the Mara River, offered something the marsh territory didn't: wider open spaces and even denser prey concentrations during migration season. Paradise Plains was controlled by the Paradise Pride, 5 to 6 lionesses and 2 aging males. Notice a pattern here. Once again, Scarface's coalition was targeting territories held by older, weaker males. This wasn't accidental. Male lions in their prime, ages 5 to 9, are formidable opponents. But males past 10 years old, their strength wanes, their teeth wear down, their joints stiffen. And these 4 brothers had developed an eye for identifying vulnerability. They were strategic hunters, not just of prey, but of opportunity. Throughout late 2013, they began conducting reconnaissance missions into Paradise Plains, testing boundaries, marking territory, sending a clear message. The Paradise Pride males had 2 choices: defend their territory or flee. In early 2014, the confrontation came to a head. It was dawn. Morani and Hunter led the assault, crossing into Paradise Plains with purpose. Scarface and Sekekwa flanked from another direction, creating a pincer movement. The 2 older Paradise males tried to fight, but the battle was decided within minutes. One managed to escape, disappearing into the wilderness. The second was wounded, not fatally but severely enough that he could no longer defend territory. Within days, Paradise Plains fell under the control of Scarface's coalition. This was a turning point. The coalition now controlled two major territories, Marsh Pride and Paradise Pride. Combined, this represented roughly 200 to 250 square kilometers, an enormous range for just 4 males. But here's what made them exceptional. There's a moment in 2014 that perfectly captures the audacity of Scarface and his brothers. Every year, the Great Migration brings millions of wildebeest and zebras from the Serengeti into the Masai Mara. It's one of nature's most spectacular events, a moving buffet that predators anticipate with Pavlovian precision. Lions can smell the approaching herds from kilometers away. They can feel the ground vibrations from thousands of hooves. The Marsh Pride territory, where the brothers were based, was experiencing a temporary prey shortage. But on the other side of the Mara River, the migration was in full swing. Here's the problem. The Mara River is death incarnate. During migration season, the waters are infested with Nile crocodiles, some of the largest, most aggressive reptiles on Earth, measuring up to 5 meters long. These crocodiles wait in the river specifically for migration season, when drowning wildebeest and zebras provide easy meals. For a lion to cross the Mara River during this time isn't just risky, it's borderline suicidal. Most lions wait. They patrol their side of the river. They pick off stragglers, but they don't cross. Scarface did. Rangers and tourists witnessed it firsthand. Scarface approached the riverbank, surveying the water. The current was strong. The crocodiles were visible, dark shapes gliding just beneath the surface. His brothers waited behind him, watching. And then Scarface stepped into the water. Not cautiously, not hesitantly. He walked in like he owned it. The water rose to his chest, then his neck. He began swimming, powerful strokes pushing against the current. And then it happened. A crocodile surged toward him, jaws opening to grab his leg. What Scarface did next is the stuff of legend. Instead of panicking, instead of trying to flee, he turned to face the crocodile. Eyewitness reports describe a brief but violent struggle, claws versus jaws, fur versus scales. Blood tinged the water, but within moments, Scarface broke free and continued swimming. He reached the far bank, climbed out, shook off the water, and immediately began hunting. His 3 brothers, emboldened by his success, followed. All 4 made it across. The crocodile that attacked Scarface likely learned a valuable lesson that day. Not all prey is equal. This river crossing became symbolic. It demonstrated several things. First, Scarface's pain tolerance and fearlessness were exceptional. Second, the brothers would go to extreme lengths to secure food for their pride. Third, physical barriers that stopped other predators didn't stop them. Rangers noted that the leg wound Scarface sustained from the crocodile encounter was minor, superficial lacerations that healed within days. But the psychological impact on anyone watching was profound. This wasn't just a lion. This was a force of nature. But if crocodiles weren't enough, there was another constant threat: hyenas. Let's clear up some misconceptions about hyena-lion dynamics. Hollywood often portrays hyenas as cowardly scavengers. In reality, spotted hyenas are one of Africa's most successful predators. They hunt more than they scavenge, they have bone-crushing jaws, and they live in clans of 30, 50 individuals. A lone lion versus a hyena clan, the lion loses. But Scarface's coalition changed those. By 2016, Scarface and his brothers had achieved something almost unprecedented. They controlled 3 major territories: Marsh Pride, Paradise Pride, and had significant influence over Riquero Pride. Their combined range exceeded 300 square kilometers. Cubs sired by the brothers were growing in multiple prides simultaneously. Their genetic legacy was spreading across the Mara. But expansion has a gravitational pull. Success attracts both followers and challengers. And the brothers weren't finished yet. In November-December 2016, the coalition pushed into the Olare Motorogi Conservancy. Olare represents some of the most pristine wilderness in the greater Mara ecosystem, lower tourist density, excellent prey populations, and several prides with aging or absent male protection. The resident males in Olare at that time were elderly and weak. The lionesses were scattered and undefended. For Scarface's coalition, it was an opportunity too good to ignore. The takeover of Olare was swift and relatively bloodless. The old males didn't even attempt to fight. They simply retreated into the wilderness, likely dying of natural causes shortly after. The Olare lionesses accepted the new males within weeks. Mating occurred rapidly. By early 2017, the first Olare cubs sired by the coalition were born. This fourth pride brought the brothers' total controlled territory to somewhere between 350–400 square kilometers. To put that in perspective, that's roughly the size of Denver, Colorado, or twice the size of Washington, D.C. Wildlife researchers began calling them the Four Musketeers of Mara, a reference to the legendary swordsman who fought as one. The name stuck. Tour guides used it. Photographers branded their images with it. There was something almost mythical about this coalition. Four brothers who arrived as unknowns, who fought with perfect coordination, who protected each other through every battle, who never betrayed one another for dominance. In a species where coalition fractures are common, where brothers often turn on each other for mating rights, these four remained united. Let's talk numbers for a moment, because this is where reality and myth start to blur. At peak dominance in 2016-2017, Scarface's coalition was simultaneously managing Marsh Pride, 6 to 7 lionesses, Paradise Pride, 5 to 6 lionesses, Recoro Pride, 4 to 5 lionesses with partial control, and Olare Pride, 6 to 7 lionesses. That's potentially 21 to 25 adult females under their protection, plus multiple generations of cubs. For just 4 males, this is an extraordinary ratio. Most successful coalitions manage one pride with 6 to 8 females. These 4 were managing 4 prides. But here's the reality check. You can't be everywhere at once. The 400 square kilometers they controlled was theoretically theirs, but practically it was a logistical nightmare. If all 4 brothers stayed together in one location, they were incredibly powerful, but left 3 other prides vulnerable. If they split into pairs, they maintained better coverage, but were individually weaker if challenged by a coalition of 3 or 4 rivals. This balancing act required constant adjustment. The solution they developed was rotation-based territory management, a pattern researchers documented over years of observation. Scarface spent the majority of his time in Paradise Plains. His presence there wasn't random. Paradise had the highest prey density and the youngest cubs during this period. Marani focused primarily on marsh and ridge territories, the original heartland of their empire. Sekekwa and Hunter were the floaters. They moved between territories based on need, responding to threats, checking boundaries, mating opportunistically. This is August 2019. A date that marks the beginning of the end for the 4 musketeers. Hunter, the coalition's most skilled predator, the one whose solo kills had kept the pride fed through lean seasons, vanished. Not killed in an observed battle, not found dead by rangers. He simply disappeared. In the Mara, when an aging male lion goes missing, there are typically 3 explanations. Killed by rival males, killed by prey during a hunt gone wrong, or succumbed to injury or illness in a remote location where the body was quickly scavenged. Field guides searched for weeks. Camera traps were checked. Territories were surveyed. Nothing. Hunter was gone. For researchers studying the coalition, his disappearance was ominous. Not just because they'd lost a subject, but because of what it symbolized. The 4 musketeers were now 3. Their combat effectiveness was diminished. Their territorial coverage had gaps. And most significantly, it sent a signal to every rival male in the region. The empire was vulnerable. Scarface, Morani, and Sekekwa adapted. They had to. The remaining three shifted their patrol patterns, spending more time together rather than splitting up as frequently. This provided better protection for each individual, but meant that some territories received less attention. The cracks were beginning to show. Younger males, perhaps intimidated before, now probed boundaries more boldly. Hyena clans grew more aggressive at kills. The psychological advantage the Four Musketeers once held was eroding. By October 2019, Scarface was showing undeniable signs of age. His teeth, once sharp and white, were now blunt and yellowed, worn down from years of bone-crushing meals and combat bites. His nose, which in young lions is pink, had turned almost completely black, a classic indicator of advanced age. Most tellingly, he was limping. His right rear leg carried an injury, possibly from a buffalo hunt or territorial fight, and it wasn't healing properly. He walked with a visible limp, a hitch in his step that must have caused constant pain. Wildlife veterinarians from the Mara Predator Conservation Program, MPCP, were monitoring him closely. When necessary, they would tranquilize him and provide medical treatment, cleaning wounds, administering antibiotics, checking for infections. These interventions likely extended his life by months or even years. But there's only so much veterinary care can do for a wild lion approaching his natural lifespan. Scarface was estimated to be 11 years old by late 2019. In captivity, lions can reach 16-20 years. In the wild, 11 is ancient. Then came 2020, COVID-19. The global pandemic that shut down international travel also shut down the Masai Mara. Kenya imposed strict lockdowns, lodges closed, safari operators suspended operations, tourists disappeared, and with them went the constant monitoring that had documented nearly every day of Scarface's adult life. For months, nobody knew what was happening to the remaining three brothers. The Mara became wild again, untouched, unobserved, governed purely by nature's laws without human witnesses. When rangers finally returned in late 2020, they found a changed landscape. Grass had grown waist-high, prey animals had shifted territories, and the three remaining brothers had consolidated their movements. They were spending most of their time in the Rekaro and Paradise Pride territory. By early 2021, anyone who saw Scarface knew the end was near. His body, once a monument of muscle and power, was now a framework of bones covered by loose skin. His ribs protruded, his spine was visible, his limp had worsened to the point where long-distance travel was impossible. Yet somehow he persisted. He was still seen near the Paradise Pride lionesses and his youngest cubs. Even in his final months, his paternal instinct remained. He couldn't hunt. He could barely walk. But he stayed close to family. There's a particular photograph from May 2021 that circulated widely among wildlife photography communities. It shows Scarface lying in golden morning light, his scarred eye partially open as always, his body alarmingly thin, but his expression calm, peaceful almost. In the background, one of his subadult cubs plays with a stick. The contrast is haunting. New life and approaching death in one frame. That image captures everything about his final days. Dignity and decline, protection despite powerlessness. In early June 2021, Scarface was spotted near a dead hippopotamus. Hippos are notoriously dangerous, even to lions, and most lion kills of hippos occur when the hippo is already sick, injured, or dead. This hippo had died of natural causes, and scavengers were gathering. 3 young males from the Seleala coalition were feeding on the carcass. Scarface approached, slowly limping, obviously not a threat to these younger, stronger males. What happened next is remarkable. The 3 Seleala males, who could have easily killed Scarface or driven him away, did neither. They allowed him to feed. They didn't challenge him. They didn't harass him. In the brutal calculus of lion society, this is extraordinary. Some rangers interpreted it as respect, These young males had likely heard Scarface's roar throughout their lives, had learned to associate that sound with power and danger. Even diminished, his reputation preceded him. Others suggest it was pragmatism. Why waste energy fighting a dying lion who posed no territorial threat? Regardless of interpretation, Scarface fed. He ate for the first time in who knows how long. And for a few more days, he lived. But time was running out. The injury to his leg wasn't healing. His teeth were too worn to tear meat efficiently. His digestive system, weakened by malnutrition, couldn't process food properly. Every biological system was shutting down. He was 11 years old, a full lifespan for a wild male lion. June 11, 2021. A Friday, field teams from the Mara Predator Conservation Program were conducting routine patrols when they found him. Scarface was lying in the heart of his former Paradise Pride territory, beneath an acacia tree, surrounded by the golden grass of the Mara. He wasn't moving. They approached cautiously, hoping he was merely sleeping, but he was gone. The King of Masai Mara had died peacefully, alone, in the land he'd dominated for nearly a decade. The necropsy revealed what everyone already knew: natural causes. No gunshot wounds, a persistent internet myth we'll address shortly. No signs of poisoning. No evidence of fatal combat injuries. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, or rather, the 400 hyenas and 130 lions in the room. If you've spent any time on YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok looking up Scarface content, you've probably seen these numbers repeated as fact. Scarface killed 400 hyenas and 130 lions in his lifetime. It sounds epic. It sounds legendary. There's only one problem. It's completely false. And today, we're going to systematically dismantle this myth using actual data, conservation records, and basic ecological logic. First, let's address sources, or the lack thereof. I spent weeks researching this video, reaching out to contacts in Kenya, reviewing field reports from the Mara Predator Conservation Program, checking ranger logs from Kenya Wildlife Service, and examining published research on lion behavior in the Masai Mara. In none of these official, documented, peer-reviewed sources is there any record of Scarface killing 400 hyenas or 130 lions. Zero. Not a single field report, not a single researcher's log, not a single verified observation supports these numbers. So where did these numbers come from? Social media. Specifically, they appear to have originated on platforms like Reddit, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts around 2018-2019, when Scarface was at peak international fame. Someone posted a dramatic claim with big numbers. It got shared. Others copied it, assuming it was true. And through the magic of viral repetition, a complete fabrication became common knowledge. This is how misinformation spreads in the digital age. Not through malicious intent, but through careless sharing. Now let's apply basic ecological logic. The entire hyena population in the Masai Mara Reserve is estimated at 600 to 700 individuals. If Scarface had actually killed 400 hyenas, he would have wiped out more than half the entire population. Hyena clans would have collapsed. The ecosystem balance would have shifted dramatically. Researchers studying the Mara would have documented a major population crash. But none of this happened. Hyena populations remained stable throughout Scarface's reign. Clan structures were intact. No mass die-off occurred. Let's also consider the mechanics. A hyena clan typically consists of 30 to 40 individuals. Even if Scarface and his brothers encountered a clan every single week for 10 years, which they didn't, and killed one hyena per encounter, which would be unusually high, that would total maybe 520 hyenas over a decade, and that's for all four brothers combined, not Scarface alone. But even that scenario is unrealistic. Most lion-hyena confrontations don't end in death. They end in the hyenas being chased away. The reality is this: Scarface and his coalition did regularly confront hyenas. They did kill hyenas when necessary, probably dozens over their decade of dominance. They absolutely established dominance over hyena clans in their territories. But dozens became hundreds, became 400 through internet exaggeration. The truth is impressive enough. They don't need fake numbers to be legendary. Now let's address the 130 lions killed claim. This one is even more absurd when you break it down. During Scarface's reign, 2012-2021, his coalition took over maybe 4-5 prides total. Each takeover might involve fighting 1 to 3 resident males. Even if every single confrontation resulted in a death, which they didn't, most rivals fled. That's at most 10-15 lions killed during territorial takeovers. Add in occasional clashes with nomadic males, maybe another 5 to 10 over a decade. We're nowhere near 130. Here's what actually happened. Scarface's coalition defeated Romeo and Cloud, who both died later from age injury, not directly from the fight. They drove off the